Today we're looking at 89, and Psalm 89 is a lot like Psalm 88 because the similarities are, again, 88 is one of those that just stays kind of in a dark place. It began with, crying out to God for salvation, that feeling like he was in a pit, recognizing who God is, that his eyes were mourning, and that he cried unto God. But he stays in that darkness, but he's still calling out to God. So many times it's okay to have a darker kind of still waiting on God, still sitting in that moment, still striving for God and waiting for God, feeling afflicted and alone, that you are encompassed daily. And yet, what's he doing? He's still waiting on God. So, although it's in a darker place, it's not so bad because you get that mood and that inflection. 89 is an interesting one because it's like it has a dialogue that goes back and forth between two people. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. With my mouth I will make known thy faithfulness. Verses 1 and 2 is like the psalmist talking. Verses 3, I have made a covenant with the chosen. I have sworn unto David my servant, thy seed will I establish forever, and will build up thy throne to all generations. This is God talking. So God is speaking here. And so you have the man talking, and you have God talking. And then God talks. Oh, wait, then the man talks. Sorry, I got backwards. Because it says, O Lord, Jehovah, thy faithfulness also the generation of the saints. For who is in heaven that is compared unto Yahweh? So, God doesn't speak to himself in third person kind of thing like that. So here we got the man talking. He's talking about how wonderful the Lord of hosts is, how strong he is, how he rules the raging of the sea and the waves arise. He talks about the heavens are thine and the earth is thine. He talks about God who's a mighty arm and a strong hand. He's really that God blesses the people who know the joyful sound. They shall walk, O Yahweh, in the light of thy countenance. So again, this man is talking. And through verse 18 is the man talking. For the Yahweh is our defense, and the Holy One of Israel is our king. Okay, so we had man talking in 1 and 2. 3 and 4 is God. God comes back into the scene. I have found David my anointed, with holy oil have I anointed him. So now he's speaking. And he speaks to 31. He starts talking about, he talks about David, and whom his hand shall be established. His enemies shall not exact over him, nor the son of wickedness afflict him. And I will beat down his foes. He's talking about what he'll do to protect and take care of. He shall cry unto me, Thou art my father, O God, and the rock of my salvation, for I will make him my firstborn higher than the kings of the earth. Again, this is messianic, meaning much of this is talking about Christ coming. He is the firstborn. But the idea also is this general narrative of, this being the promise of God. It says, my mercy will be upon him forevermore, and my covenant shall stand upon him. So he is, this is very powerful imagery here. He talks about his seed, shall endure forever. Again, messianically, you're not talking about Jesus because he's not going to have seed. Here we're talking about the kingship line. So he kind of filters a little bit both. My covenant will I not break, nor alter the things that I have gone off from my lips. So again, this is very powerful and strong. But then the man comes back in and says, But thou hast cast us off and abhorred. Thou hast been wrought with thine anointed. Thou hast void the covenant of thy servant. Thou hast profaned his crown by casting it to the ground. Now we get into some negativeness. It stays dark here through 52, from 38 to 52, because you're finding out that the undercurrent is there has been sin, there has been separation, that people have sinned and God has cast them off. And now we end the psalm not with reconciliation, but with the man, with the psalmist, coming back to God, but calling out to God because he knows he's separated from God because of his sin. All that passed away spoil him. He is a reproach to his neighbors. Thou hast set the right hand of his adversaries. Thou hast made all his enemies to rejoice. Again, a darkness here that this king, this man of God, this one This is not talking about God forsaking Christ. This is about God and the king that he is forsaken. And so here we have him talking about this and how that king line has been forsaken. And so he talks about, thou hast also turned the edge of the sword. Thou hast not made him to stand in battle. He has been defeated. The king has been defeated. And we know that the king is defeated. Why? Why did God turn against him? Because of sin. So we see this again. This is a beautiful psalm because it starts good and you start thinking, okay, great, a worship psalm. Nice. Then we get God talking. All right, this is cool. God's exalting himself and talking about, and then God talks about that he will hold up the kings. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. This is good. And then all of a sudden, when you get to 38, but we're in a forsaken state. Well, you're in a forsaken state because you sinned. And so we see this has actually got some powerful imagery and some powerful emotions. How long, O Lord, wilt thou hide thyself forever? Wilt thy wrath burn like fire? And he goes on, remember, Yah Adonai. Again, the word Adonai is used here, not Jehovah. The reproach of thy servants, how I do bear in my bosom the reproach of all the mighty people, wherein thine enemies have reproached, O Jehovah. So in 50, he references Adonai. And in 51, he references Jehovah. Blessed be Jehovah forevermore. He's still waiting. Again, this is one in darkness, solemnity, and waiting. So again, it has this thing, that a little bit of a roller coaster and then drops you down. And that's a good thing. Some of these dark emotions, dark feelings are good for mature people. By the time you've read this far into the book, there should be some kind of emotives in play. There should be kind of a, not just everything is, dovetailed into happiness. But we see where this one, he still seems to be waiting. But the enemies of the God have reproached the king, and it's because of sin. So again, a nice little emotional roller coaster here that has some good feeling to it. Going back to Joshua, we've had everybody settled in chapters 1 and 2, and they were getting ready to cross the Jordan. And so Joshua's been given the call to be strong and courageous, and they sent out the spies. The spies went to Rahab, stayed there, and made a covenant with her that they would protect her and her household when they took Jericho. In chapter 3, we had Israel crossing over the Jordan, and they crossed over on dry ground. This had to scare everybody because here comes God. He's moving, and they're blowing trumpets as they're going. He is broadcasting what he's doing. When God moves here, he's broadcasting. They're hearing these trumpets from afar. It's going across the desert, and they can hear these people moving. And so they've got this water backing up, and here they're coming across Jordan. They took some stones from the Jordan and put plaster on them and wrote some words so that for generations they would remember what God has done. So in chapter 4, they're going across. You take 12 men of your people and go into the Jordan, like I just said, and you'll take 12 stones and carry them over with you and leave them in the lodging place where we lodge tonight. So they're going to be now on this west side of Jordan. And they're going to take up every man a stone, and you'll put a sign on it that the children of the fathers may know, may ask, what are these stones? The waters of the Jordan were cut off before the Ark of the Covenant when we passed over Jordan. So the stones are a remembrance of what happened, and the children of Israel did this. The priests which bear the ark, they stood in the middle until everything had been finished. Then the Lord commanded Joshua to bring the people. And it came to pass that the people were clean passed over, that the ark passed, and there were about 40,000 men here ready for war. Now, they left some of them behind on the east side, but you also had women and children. Now, when we do the Battle of Jericho, it'll just be the armed men who go out and circle the city. So the Lord will be magnified. He commands the priests to bear the Ark of the Testimony when they come out of the Jordan, and they come out, and the water flows back. And it was at flood stage at that time. So they go off, and they set up those 12 stones. And the Amorite kings heard about this, and all of the kings of the Canaanite, and they'd heard that the Lord dried up the waters, and their spirit left from them. They melted, their hearts melted. Here comes Yahweh. Here comes Yahweh and his people. Before they do that, the people have to be circumcised. We find out that nowhere in the last 38 years, probably for health reasons, did the people get circumcised. But here they are on this side of the river, so they're going to get circumcised. So all the men that are there, I guess they're going to have to go back and circumcise the ones that the younger kids and the older men that stayed on the other side. But all the men on this side, including these 40,000 warriors, are getting circumcised. Now the people had not been circumcised, so they're going to circumcise, and they're going to wait. Wait, of course, when they're healed up. And it came to pass that when they had done circumcising all the people, they abode in the camp until they were whole. So the men who didn't go to war stayed in the camp. Those that did got better, and then they're going to move on. Now this happened they also did Passover at this time. So this is going to give them an extra week before they take Jericho. So they're going to have Passover in a camp called Gilgal. They do Passover and unleavened bread, first fruits. And the manna ceases. It's interesting. When they get over there and there's old corn, this is in the spring, there's enough food for them to eat, the manna stops. Well, here they are getting into the promised land. Now you have to take the land. Now you have to take Jericho. You've got to take all this land because you're going to have to feed these people. Now you've got to set up this inheritance because God is not feeding them anymore. So they come across and there's no more manna. And Joshua meets someone here. It's interesting that this is known. Many people believe that this was an early form of Jesus Christ. This would be God, the same God who came down and talked with Abraham, who wrestled with Jacob. Here he is making another appearance. Joshua sees a man with a sword, and he asks, "Are you for us or of our adversaries?" And this guy says, "I'm for myself. I'm the captain of the Lord of the host of Jehovah." And Joshua falls down to worship. And we know this is God because this person accepts worship. He also asks him to take off his shoes because he's on holy ground. Again, a connection with Mount Sinai. So this is the Lord getting into the battle. This is the Lord taking control at the time of battle. See, when Jericho happened, God wasn't sitting up in a throne somewhere looking over the mezzanine. He comes down to lead the troops. He's got the battle plan, and he's going to work through Joshua. And he tells Joshua what they're going to do. Jericho goes straight up, tells them that your plan in chapter 6 is that you will march the Ark of the Covenant out with some Levites, with trumpets, 7 trumpets, and the mighty men will go, and they'll stay quiet, and they go around one time, and then they leave. They do this 6 days in a row. On the 7th day, you'll do it 6 times, and then blow the trumpets. And he says, when that happens, the walls will come straight down. Now, usually you had to have a battering ram to push them in, or if you dug under them, maybe trying to get them to fall out. But here, they're going to go straight down. And actually, this is a point to where there is archaeological evidence when they found Jericho that the walls had fallen straight down. So that's going to be an interesting thing. These people on the wall will have some standing on the ground, and here come the Israelites. And they're going to go, and they'll be blowing the horns all the time, and there's one long blast, and then they will take Jericho. So Joshua calls the priest, and he gets the Ark of the Covenant and the 7 trumpets and the priest with ram's horns, and he sets this up. And the armed men that went before the priest that blew with the trumpets, and the rearward came with the ark. And Joshua commanded the people, don't make any noise. So they go, and they do this. And the Ark of the Covenant passed the cities once. Joshua went around in the morning, and the priests bare this, and they did this with the blowing of the trumpets. And they did this for 6 days. So every morning they got up, got all these guys around, and the priest marched them there. I don't know how far it was. Marched them around the city. I don't know how long that took. And then they left. They did this 6 days in a row. And on the 7th day, they did it 6 times. And you can imagine how tired you would get. You wouldn't be much ready for battle with giants if you marched around the city 6 times. But that's what they did because the battle would be the Lord's, not the might of the Israelites. So here, they blow the trumpet. The walls come down. These 40,000 run in. They kill all the people there. Men, women, children, younger children, older people, all the oxen. They were told to give the silver and the gold and the brass consecrated to the Lord, but they were also told, don't take anything. Anything you take is an accursed thing. Now, it might be accursed because it's simply an idol. It might be accursed because it has plague on it. It has not been cleansed. It might be accursed because it's going to lead you into whoredom. Whatever the curse it is, we don't know what it is. We know that God's called it accursed. We find out tomorrow that somebody did take something. But just for the day, we're going to finish with victory, because they take it, they take the city, they destroy anybody except, again, Rahab. Rahab had 7 days to get everybody in, had 7 days to go find all friends and family, anyone that was wanting to come in. It's almost like the gospel. They're coming, but here's safety. You know, well, how do you know? Just come into my house. No, I don't believe you. Okay, fine. If you don't believe me, you can stay out there. So he gathers all of her family and friends, all that will listen, into her house. And again, when we say household, sometimes we think of one building, but a household can be, you know, like an acre or something like that, or 2 acres or 5 acres or something, a compound, if you will, within the city, that people come in on the gates, and they were going to leave a red thread in a window of the gate. And maybe they had a building against the gate. The point is, they saved Rahab out and her kindred. They burned the city with fire. Only the silver, gold, and the brass went to God, except for what we find out tomorrow. Joshua saved Rahab the harlot alive, and she was a harlot. I know a lot of times Baptist sensibilities, oh, she was an innkeeper. Let's let the Bible, again, when we do the grid work, whatever the grid work says, it's what it is. We're not going to sit there and redefine it. It's like under plastic. It's like under glass. And we're just looking at it going, yep, that's what it says. Yep, that's what it says. And let's see how that connects with everything. Oh, yeah, okay. I can see the connections up to this point. This is how we do the grid. We don't change it, because if you change it, you're going to change things to come. That's the biggest problem we have with theologies. When you go back and tweak things, you change everything. It's just like a circuit breaker. You change one circuit, you're changing the way the energy flows. You change the machine, you change the computer, you know, of what it's trying to do when you make changes. Leave everything static and just build it along. It's very important that we don't touch it. Once we turn the page, we're done with it. You know, we can go back and reference that I see the same circuit back here. I see the same thing back here. I see this back here. And this, I know I'm going to see it coming. But we don't change it. I don't like it. I'm going to change it, and I'm going to find a way to change it. If we do that, then this book means nothing. I'll just change it as I want. He saves them, and Joshua, cursed is the man that rises up and builds on Jericho. And he'll lay the foundation with his firstborn, and his younger son he shall set up with the gates. So he's going to set the foundation with the death of his firstborn. And when he builds his gates, he'll do it with his second. And this does happen, I think, somewhere in the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, or one of the later kings, that someone does set this up and actually does sacrifice his firstborn and his youngest son in this same fashion. And the Lord and Jehovah was with Joshua, and his fame was noised throughout the country. Listen. When this fell, it was a big deal, and everybody heard about it. And here they come. So again, this narrative just keeps rolling. But again, using grid work, do not change it when you see it. Just leave it there, because when you change it, you're changing things that are to come. And we don't want to do that. Thank you.